Are you already in the back? Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Thank you all for being here. I'd like to call this regular meeting of our Town Plan and Zoning Commission to order. It is Monday, November 6th, 2023 at 6:35 p.m. Thank you for your patience. We are waiting on one final member who may join us in the coming minutes. My name is Robert Klee. I am the chair of the Woodbridge Town Plan and Zoning Commission. Other members of the commission who are with us here tonight include Kathy Hunter, Yoni Zamir, Jeff Kennedy, and Chadi Nugent. We may have Andrew Skolnick arriving as we speak. We are ably supported by Chris Sullivan, our town land use analyst and zoning enforcement officer. We're happy to be here in person. It's nice to see all the members of the public here as well. Our agenda has been available on the town website. Tonight we have a continuation of a public hearing for a special exception permit to erect two wayfinding or directional signs at Bear Hill/Seymour Road and Acorn Hill/Seymour Road. We then have some new business and additional work in our work session. So I'd now like to open or reopen or continue. What is the right procedural term? It's
Recontinue.
Recontinue.
You're continuing. This is only the
We're going to continue our public hearing for the special exception permit for the wayfinding signs at Bear Hill/Seymour Road and Acorn Hill/Seymour Road, directing folks to the Criz Farm Ice Cream at 13 Bear Hill Road in Bethany. And for our applicant for the special exception, if you could introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Vince Marino of Marino, Zabel, and Schellenberg here for the applicant, and the applicant is present with me this evening.
Terrific. Are there things you'd like to start us off with in this continued hearing before we get to a public comment?
Let me just sign in.
Take your time.
Agenda number 1. Mr. Chairman, what I'd like to put in for the record is just a transcript of the ZBA hearing, so that in the event it's needed, it'll be part of the record. I did make a copy for everyone on the body, so that if we're discussing it, we can reference specifics.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd also like to put in for the record copies of pictures that were taken of another sign on Seymour Road and I want to make it clear that we're not here objecting to this sign. In fact, I think when we look at the sign, it actually looks nice in the landscape. It is a sign that was put up probably about less than a quarter mile from where my client's farm is. I believe it's related to Bethany Farms. Bethany Farms is primarily, they have 17 acres in the town of Bethany proper, and then I believe the owner of that owns land that fronts Seymour Road. I think actually they may own two parcels. The parcel 229 Seymour Road is 0.21 acres in the town of Woodbridge. Not large enough to be a farm, but it has a sign advertising for its farm.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I don't want to belabor this point. I know we had some great discussion on this last time, and I kind of ended with ZBA, that there was discussion and some, I don't want to say decision on their part, but there was at least advisement by them that we should come here and seek a special permit, because in their view, my client's signs would be eligible under your regulations. Now, the importance of that, and what I did for the body is I highlighted in this transcript really the salient points to be made. where they felt, Commissioner Wisnia, they felt that we had a strong case to get these signs approved. I believe it was Commissioner Waters very artfully stated what our argument is as to why they should be approved. If she were here today, I would just ask her to sit here because she made a very, very eloquent argument. And what the importance of this is that under, under the law, you sit when you're creating regulations in a legislative capacity. And you're granted great deference in the interpretation of your regulations. When the ZBA sits to review your regulations, they sit in a quasi-judicial capacity. And what we would have is if there's a difference of opinion between the two bodies, the law says because zoning is in derogation of property rights, that they have to be read in favor of the property owner. So, in fact, the law is quite clear. It says the Connecticut Appellate Court, when more than one interpretation of language of a zoning regulation is permissible, restrictions upon the use of lands are not to be extended by implication, and doubtful language will be construed against rather than in favor of the restriction. So, are these signs permissible under your special use exception process, your special permit process? We believe the answer to that is yes. They're advertising for a local farm, albeit not a farm that's on site, but it's 800 feet up the road. And it is clear that at least one body in this town felt that they were eligible for approval through this process. If you disagree, I think which it's your right to do, I still think you need to pause because of that ZBA discussion. And you need to say, are we reading these regulations in favor of my client? Because again, zoning is in derogation of that farm's property interests. And under that, I think in this situation, since it's a special use process, all the concerns that were raised last time about someone putting signs up regarding for a dispensary or something, that can be addressed because those signs would have to come before this commission and you could exercise your discretion saying, we're not going to allow it for a liquor store or for a dispensary or for some other establishment, but we're going to allow it for the advertisement of a church or a farm or something that is more organic in a residential community, something that fits. And as has been articulated ad nauseum already, this is ultimately one community, the Amity community. Back in a day, we were all part of the Milford Parish, and over time, we evolved into the communities that we are today. So we should not look so strictly upon this Bethany property owner as being not someone from Woodbridge. This is a farm that's present in your community, is utilized by your constituents, and all we're trying to do, we're not suggesting that we get signs like what are up here. And again, we're not objecting to these. We're not complaining about them, but they're present. And all we want are these two signs so that our customers and potential customers don't get lost on their way coming through, a rural community known as Woodbridge. And my client does have just a couple of words that she would like to address the commission, if Mr. Chair, if you would permit that. But other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I don't want to belabor the point. I think we've addressed most of the issues here.
But before you, do you want to bring your client up first, or can we ask you some questions?
Yeah, it's your meeting, Mr. Chair. However you prefer.
Just two quick clarifying ones for me. You were citing an appellate case. Do you actually have the?
Yes.
What case?
Trumbull Falls LLC, the Plan and Zoning Commission of Town of Trumbull. That's 97 Connaught 17 at page 30, 2006. And that's citing Fario v. ZBA at 70 Connaught 86, pages 89 to 90, 2002.
And then just, again, you've submitted for the record the transcript. This is of the August 8th, 2023 ZBA special meeting. This was the second
Correct.
meeting, correct?
Correct. This was the second meeting. The first meeting I was in attendance at. My client had not retained me until that point. But, as I felt procedurally, when you're appealing an action of a ZBA, the issue is I have a burden that I have to sustain. And it's really a proceeding between the appellant and the CEO. What the public said at that first meeting, which probably you'd hear again tonight, or you've already heard at the last meeting about their support of these signs at this location, is really not germane to what was before them. So they then got on this track where they got this opinion from special town council, which commissioners disagreed with, I always say to my clients, you have every right not to follow my advice and agree with me, particularly when it comes to matters of interpretation. Because ultimately, it's up to this body's decision and or, in that instance, that body's decision as to how to interpret these regulations. And I appreciate that there might be more than one way to interpret your regulations. I don't believe it's as clear cut as it never is, as we might like. But because of that ambiguity in the language, and because it's in derogation of my client's property interests, they need to be read liberally in the farm's favor. So,
And one more procedural question.
Yes,
What
sir.
is the current status of that zoning board of appeals appeal?
withdrawn.
Hmm?
Withdrawn. The CEO
Withdrawn.
rescinded the initial letter, which mooted my appeal. Because I had argued procedurally it was premature because we had not been given notice of what we were in violation of. So, Mrs. Sullivan and I discussed it, and we felt that that was the most prudent course, is for her to rescind, and based upon what you all decide tonight, she will have every right to pursue it or not.
Thank you. Appreciate those clarifying questions. Did anyone else on the commission want to ask questions now? But I do want to make sure your client as applicant also has a chance
Yes.
to speak.
Yeah.
as well.
I would ask Attorney Marino if you have any response to the August 7th letter from Attorney Nolan, the special town counsel. If you have anything specifically you want to respond to in that letter. I mean, I don't think you need to respond necessarily to the August 3rd letter. I think the August 7th letter kind of covers both things. And if you just take an opportunity.
Yeah, no, again, I've been practicing in municipal law for about 30 years, and the unique thing about municipal law is that these are really driven locally by the regulations when you're dealing with land use. Every community could be the same issue and a different outcome. It's driven by your regulations. And I don't think that that decision looked at the regulations, correctly. Because it does render, if you read your regulations in such a way that says this is not these are not permissible signs, and these regulations were for the church that comes into the residential district, and it's on-site activity. If you read them like that, then it does render, as Commissioner Waters articulated in her response to that decision, that there's a disagreement as to the interpretation of those regs. I think it read your regs very narrowly and missed, in doing so, that it rendered other regulations meaningless. And since you, as a legislative body, when drafting these, and I know it was a commission well before this commission that did it, but you're presumed to know that all sections of your regulations have meaning. A legislative body would not enact legislation that had no meaning. That's what our law presumes. So, in order to give all regulations meaning and have them stand, you can't read them so narrowly.
So, as to that point, though, that Attorney Attorney Nolan's reading and interpretation of our regulations and responses to, I believe it was Commissioner Waters' questions, or maybe even the ZBA's questions, you're saying that that Attorney Nolan's reading thus renders some of our other regulations meaningless. You're saying, you're disagreeing with.
I'm
the
disagreeing with
interpretation.
his,
I mean, I don't wanna put you on the spot, and
Yeah.
maybe you've addressed it in writing.
Yeah.
Which ones do you think it renders meaningless? Do you have an
yeah,
opinion on that?
well, you know, I'm gonna actually go right to, the transcript. And if you look, if you basically look at, the argument on page 3, and
The transcript from the.
this is the
conversation?
transcript, right. And, since it's here in black and white, instead of me pulling words out of my air,
Sure.
I'm just simply gonna turn to the argument made, that evening. And what was argued in the first instance, was that, section C, which states prohibited signs. There are 2 categories, section C1 and C2. The section is very specific and does not specifically prohibit the types of signs that the Chris Farm has put up. The commission could have, in adopting this language, been specific and prohibited signs like for the Chris's, but it did not. And the absence of that language is meaningful when interpreting these regulations. Because you have a section that's specific as to what is prohibited. And the phrase non-residential use in the regulation is ambiguous. You know, non-residential use, well, this is a farm being advertised on a single-family homes residence. Unrelated, but when you look at your reading of your regulation, you got to take a step back and you have to say, well, we prohibited signs, but we didn't prohibit all signs, you know. And so when I have to read these regulations, taking into account that they're in degradation of property interests, right, constitutional rights, you either have to be specific in how you're regulating, or if there's ambiguity, you have to read them in favor of the property owner. Otherwise, you're depriving someone of their rights. And that's what land use is. It's a deprivation of property rights, so that there's a harmonious use in a given area. And, you know, we operate under that concept, and we've operated under that concept since zoning came into being back, you know, 70 years ago now. And keeping in mind that this farm has been around for probably hundreds of years. It's been owned by the Cruz family for probably 60 or 70 years. Again, for purposes of its pre-existing status, you know, it's been there. It was I believe a dairy farm, if I'm correct, back, you know, when it started, you know, called a couple hundred years ago. So, you know, I think what's most important for this body is, at least for this application, is it offensive to the residential district? Yeah, I haven't heard anyone come up standing in opposition. That doesn't necessarily control the day, but because you have applied this in your special use process, granting this application is not going to undermine this commission in the future. It's not going to set a precedent, because you take every application on its own merits, and you have to ask yourself, does this fit? And, you know, like I said with this farm that chose to advertise, this is a Bethany farm, it's not a Woodbridge farm. 17 acres in the town of Bethany. They bought 0.21 acres, which I don't believe is large enough to be a farm under your regulations, but it's advertising.
And so this sign is in Woodbridge.
This is on Seymour Road
Okay,
in Woodbridge.
Yeah, I get that. Okay, the other question that I had, sorry to cut you short, but so we get to, going back to Attorney Nolan's letter, at the end of the letter, he states that at the time he wrote the letter, there was your special exception application did not exist. So but he does say at the end of his letter that although we have not been advised of any application for special exception, we don't address the issue at this time. Moreover, we see no provision authorizing commercial advertising signs such as the CRIS signs in the residential zones, even by special exception. So he appears to be essentially saying no special exception either for this type of advertising sign. Do you have a response that you'd like to make to that point?
Yes, so when you, again, let me go back to your regulation. So attached to the original application, I believe, are the sign regulations. And as your ZBA really kind of instructed us, and again, I don't want to put too much on that body, but I took away when I read the transcript that they were saying, go to zoning, and this is the process that you should follow. So when you look at table 4.6, it's just 4.6 and 4.7. You're specific in your regulation. All right, a freestanding sign erected or placed perpendicular or parallel to the public street or highway to which the building or structure fronts or abuts, provided that the sign does not exceed 5 feet in height and 40 square. When you're describing that section, there's a list of uses, not an exclusive list. Doesn't say specific to, I believe it's, not jumping out at me right now, but it says churches, it says, actually it doesn't say farms, but what it says is like, and then it lists 4 or 5 different uses. I'm gonna jump to that in a second, but in putting that in your regulation, all you're giving yourself is examples of what could be there. So you have farms historically have been a use in residential zones in this community and surrounding communities from the time that these communities came into being. And it is very, very likely that a farm in this situation where you have a boundary line that was created that says you're in another town, but the intersection, the primary intersection, because keep in mind, those state signs can go anywhere within 5 miles of this farm, regardless of town boundary. And what this farm is saying is, in order to assist my customers to know that this is the intersection where they need to turn, these 2 signs matter in that aid. If we go to the state and come back and put 2 signs at this location, this commission would not even have the ability to say anything, because it's something that the state oversees. We chose to come to you to say, these are better, we think these fit better into the character of your community than those directional signs from the state that are not gonna be apparent to anyone driving as these 2 signs are. The property owners support the location of it. It does not affect future property owners, because ultimately it's up to the property owner whether or not they have agreement with the farm to post that sign. So you are not burdening this land in the future. But what you're doing now is allowing and supporting a local farm business that provides us benefit to us all.
Other questions from commission members?
No.
No. Would you like your applicant to share a few words before we get to our public hearing portion?
Want me to sign in, right?
Please, thank you.
Yes.
Alright, I'm not gonna take up much of your time, we've spent a real lot of time on this already. Luckily for you guys, only half of what we've already done. But, I'm Wendy Kriz, I own the business of Kriz Farm Ice Cream, my husband and stepson own the farm property. My father-in-law and uncle-in-law bought that property over 60 years ago from a dairy farmer. That dairy farm has literally been there for hundreds of years, since the Naugatuck Valley originally settled, which is, I don't even think there's a way to count how far back, but this farm has been there forever. The agricultural committee is dwindling every year, and we really want to be a contributing factor to keep the agricultural committee going. We raise animals, we make hay, and now trying to sustain the property, which becomes more and more expensive to keep, and we had to find another way to make money to keep the farm. So the ice cream shop was a way for us to be able to maintain the farm, maintain the integrity of our community, and contribute to our community. We've invested an extraordinary amount of effort, time, and money to keep our directional signs on the Route 67 intersection specifically. Some might argue that everybody has a navigation system which will tell you how to get to our farm. In many cases that's true. We've had delivery people deliver our Uber Eats to wrong addresses. Many customers have lost their way because the navigation does not always send them in the right direction. You know, it would have been much easier for us to remove the signs when we got the initial letter in May, but these signs are so crucial to our business. We really, really need them in order to, you know, to continue to grow our business. We're so new, we're in such a rural area, and just about everybody I ask that comes to the store for the first time, how did you find us? Your signs at the lights. They find us because of those specific signs. I hope that you guys can see a way to help us out. We've been more than cooperative with every group that we've worked with, from Quinnipiac Valley to Woodbridge to Bethany, and we want to continue to do that and be good neighbors and friends. We employ a lot of Amity kids. You know, we're continuing to grow our community, and you know, I understand there's legal things, but hopefully we can find a way around or to work together to make it happen, because it's really crucial to the survival of our farm. So, and I want to thank all of you and the Zoning Appeals Group too for all the time that I know you guys have put into this. We really appreciate it. And that's all I have to say.
Mr. Chair, I just, actually, two more things just for the record. One is, the Woodbridge would be the assessor's map of 229 Seymour Road. Again, just wanted, this is where that sign is located, for Bethany Farms. And it, again, shows you that it's about a .21 acre parcel. And the second, excuse my snipping and cutting, I tried to put two maps together because I couldn't figure out how to do it simply, and my staff had left for the evening. This is showing the Kriz Farm Again, this is Bethany now, from the Bethany GIS, and it's the Chris Farm and Bethany Farms, right here, showing how close they are. They're, according to the measuring tool on there, they're 0.21 miles apart, about 1,128 feet. And again, the Bethany Farms farm does not have any frontage on Woodbridge public right-of-way, except for the disconnected two, I believe, parcels that it owns on Seymour Road.
Forgive me, what is this depicting again?
That's Bethany Farms owns that, that's where the sign, their
The
sign
sign
is
that you
located.
gave us pictures of tonight.
Yeah.
Gotcha, okay.
Okay?
I need one.
Chris, do you have copies of these?
Yes. No, I got that. I just need that one. Okay.
And Attorney Marino, I just have one other question, and I'll obviously open it up again for our members. I believe we were submitted a copy of the Orange Town Planning and Zoning Commission's rules, was that? I think it
That was not through my office, I believe
No, I
that
know.
was from one of the speakers, I think he was the
Mr.
tall guy.
Zioli had referenced it, and their ZEO sent
Yep.
it over, so.
Yeah, no, so that's also now in our record. Have you had a chance to look at it or
I mean,
perhaps, or even review the Orange sort of rules? And-
I'm the town attorney in the town of Orange.
Oh, so
So-
is there something about, because I looked through this document, it didn't jump out at me as saying that there was specifically something for farm-related activities that had a different path, but
No.
it seemed to be what was presented to us
Yes,
last
and
time.
again, that wasn't my argument, and it wasn't, I believe Mr. Zioli was making the argument that in his community, where he is first selectman, I am the town attorney, but I don't necessarily get involved. I don't farm, and I don't necessarily adopt everything he says as my own. So, so in this, again, if you had specific questions about that, you could ask him, he is present, but,
I don't
you know-
think we actually technically can ask him, because we
well,
can only
it's
ask questions of
public,
the applicant.
public comment, that's right, Mr. Chair. But in this instance, there was an issue as to signage in the town of Orange. And in order to address the issue, they created a process for local farms and other establishments to come forward to get their basically a sign application.
Through a special exception.
I
permit
believe in
process.
some instances, it depends on the size of the sign. Some can be dealt with administratively, others can be done through the special use process.
Are there any farms in Orange, town of Orange that have wayfinding signs similar to the ones that being posted, do you know?
Yeah, well, yeah, in fact, I see signs as I'm driving. I live in the town of Orange also. So I see signs for Shamrock Farm, which are these kind of postcard-looking things that are just stuck in the ground.
Sure.
No offense. And then I see signs that are more like state, we've got Treat Farm. We have the Heinz Farm, which has a big placard up because it's the oldest farm in the country. So it varies depending upon what the farm is looking to do and how much money they can spend.
Thank you. Other questions of our applicant from commission members? All right. Thank you.
I want to thank the commission for its time and the amount of effort you put into this analysis.
Appreciate it. So next, we're going to go to the public hearing portion of this application for special exception permit. The purpose of our public hearing is to listen to your comments. Folks are invited to come on up and sign in on the sign-in sheet. Once you're all signed in and seated and ready, you'll have up to 3 minutes for your brief statements into the record, and I'll use my phone for timing purposes. Our TPC members and the applicants will not be answering any questions that you may raise. Your public statements and any written comments that have been submitted to the town will be part of the public record for the TPC's consideration of this application. Chris, did we receive any written statements since our last hearing? But we'll check on that.
Yeah, we'll check it out.
As a reminder to everyone, off-the-record communication with a member of our Planning and Zoning Commission on the merits of this application is prohibited. Please keep your comments brief and focused on the proposed special exception permit, and try to avoid unreasonable repetition so we can hear all the concerns that you have and those of your neighbors as well. So I invite anyone to come on up to the public portion. Yeah, you don't have to raise your hand. Well, it's nice that you did raise your hand, but you're welcome to come on up. And we have plenty of time for everyone who wants to speak. But take your time and sign in first.
Good evening. My name is Betsy Quist. I live at 62 Pease Road here in Woodbridge. I am the former tax assessor in the town of Woodbridge from 25 years. I'm presently the tax assessor in the town of Bethany. I appreciate the picture that Attorney Marino gave you. I'm not here to speak against this photo at all, but I drive down this street very often. This is a picture, this photo, the first one, is not at 229, this is at 259 Seymour Road, which is actually at the same corner opposite of where the CRIS signs are. When you look at the next third photo, this does go down the street, and that is 229 Seymour Road, where they own literally an entranceway, a very small entranceway in the town of Woodbridge, where that sign is located, and the entire business is in the town of Bethany. So this is a pure example of you are allowing this, but you're not allowing that. So I just want to point out to you that if you're not going to allow that, then unfortunately you're going to have to inhibit this. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Brendan Thymian. I am the homeowner at 272 Seymour Road, which, if you look at your map, you can probably see it on the intersection map. It's right there. So basically just coming as the resident that lives, one of 3 people that live closest to the sign. I find no offense to it. You know, I think, what was it, a year or 2 ago when they put them up, that was actually how I found out there was ice cream down there. And that's pretty cool. And I live across the street. So I have a 4-year-old daughter who calls it the ice cream farm. We bring her there pretty much every weekend if she's good. I have a almost 1-year-old son, so I'll be looking forward to bringing him. And for the record, I did send an email
Yes, you did.
on
Now let me-
October 4th. I was
Which
unable
I-
to make the previous meeting,
I think I forwarded to you.
so I can forward it to you if you need it. So I'm just here to support the farm. You know, I think that with that intersection and how much traffic that it gets between New Haven and Route 8, there's a lot of out-of-towners that might not hear from word of mouth, and they might just turn for a treat after a long day of work. And then you have people like me that, you know, enjoy living in this town, pay taxes, and we love bringing our kids there, and it's a quality of life. It's a fun, as the attorney said, an organic thing. It's not, you know, an auto body shop or something that's not benefiting its immediate neighbors. It's greatly benefiting our quality of life, and, you know, it's a fun thing for us to do. And then we did the pumpkins recently, and it's just it's a nice thing to get back to the farms in this day and age when everything is going digital and, you know. So I won't keep talking. I just wanted to let you know that I am one of the closest people to that sign, and I have 0 issues with it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for your comments.
My name is Linda Caruso. I am a resident of Bethany, but I am also a taxpayer in the town of Woodbridge. We have property in Woodbridge. I'm here as wanting to say that I think that Chris's farm is a great little farm in Bethany. The sign poses nothing offensive. It's just advertising ice cream and a nice little, cute little farm that's like a Hallmark, something out of a Hallmark movie. This should not even be brought up. We should have more effort into other things that are going on in the town of Woodbridge than this. And I just feel that this is just a moot point. I think we should give these people a break. They're great people. They give back to the community. They hire our high school and, college students for the summer. They really give back. So I think that being a small business owner, we should give them a chance in the town of Woodbridge.
Thank you very much for your comment.
We're a small knit group, you see.
Yes.
Okay, my name is William Della Camera. I own and operate Ceccarelli's farm in Northford, Connecticut. Very close friends with Timmy and Wendy and Jim and acquaintances of many other people in this room. Last time I was to Woodbridge, I sat in front of your Open Space Commission to advocate for farms and open space. Our farm in Northford has development restrictions against it. So when issues like this come up, I hold them near and dear to my heart. And one of them is because we as farmers are stuck on our piece of land and we don't have the choice to move our land. And it's hard for us to move our operation to somewhere else. So I always feel that when issues like this come up, that we need to be creative to help the farmers with issues like this. I mean, essentially, we're stuck on land that was, there for generations. And so if we do have a zoning issue, it's not like we're trying to start an industrial complex in residential areas. And we're not looking to beat any rules or regulations. And I really, I don't see any harm for their sign in any way. I think it could be creative to, if there is an issue, we could fix that. Maybe on a public safety issue is having that sign there at that intersection. You may have someone pass that intersection, either direction, God forbid, they decide to turn around in someone's driveway and people aren't the greatest drivers anymore. God forbid there's a motorcycle coming up that road and they turn around, maybe this sign may have changed the outcome of that. So two issues: public safety, one, to get people to the right location, and two is there's not many of us left and we have to stick together and support each other. And I'm here to support them in their endeavors as they support anything I would do. Thanks for your, checking this application out, and I hope that you guys make the decision to allow them to have their signs. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment.
I want to make a point because.
You need to sign in,
I
Paula.
will. Orange, Woodbridge, and Bethany. I'm Paula Kofrancesco. I'm the first selectman of Bethany, okay? I'm here to support them. We are a very rural town. We rely basically on real estate taxes. We try to support our businesses whenever we can. We're talking about two signs that will help promote and support a local business in town. It's a very simple thing. we wanna support your town, we travel through it, we support your businesses. These are 2 signs on corners that will help support a Bethany business. But we are 3 towns that are together as a region. We need to support each other, and just please, I ask you to support this. Your turn.
He's the chairman.
We came up as a tag team.
Apparently not boss here.
I don't know if I am or not tomorrow night. You inform. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, both of us.
We may be going out for coffee and breakfast the next day, not a worry in the world.
You're going for coffee and breakfast no matter what.
That's true. Okay, the flowers are in town.
Okay, you're good.
Hi, my name is Bobby Fantarella. I live in Orange. I actually had a hobby farm in Orange, and now we're pretty much just cutting hay. We don't have a stand anymore. I also own Elm City Trailer in Woodbridge, and I've been here for 6.5 years. I was here in Woodbridge, I ran a entertainment company called Hot Rock Productions in Bradley Road Industrial Park for over 25 years. Have worked for Board of Ed, schools, donations for countless, but we've done the Orange Junior High, Woodbridge, the high school. I have been involved in this community a long time. The sign issue, I realize, we can all get heartfelt about it, but at the end of the day, there's regulations and you gotta follow rules. I get it. The one point you were making about farm having exemptions was, and I don't know how it's put in any regulations, but we have seasonal signs for every farm, whether it's Christmas trees, flowers, vegetables, hay, corn mazes. People put them up all the time, all over the place. These particular signs, and excuse me if I repeat myself because I missed the last meeting, but they're even on Route 67, which is a state road, and they're in the state regulations are fine, size-wise, distance from the street. No danger, no harm. So my point was, if there has to be an exemption for a farm, usually ag-related things can have other exemptions because there are so few farms left. And obviously, you could sell off the land and develop it, and we could put up a bunch of more houses and add to the schools, and we could get into a whole nother realm. But at the end of the day, it's, they talked about the golf course sign that was at that same corner for the last 25 years for a golf course that's in Bethany. Yeah, nobody said anything about that sign nobody cared, but there was one phone-in call on this sign, and now, I don't know how much time we've wasted, money, these poor people have to wait, these friends of mine, you guys. And now the lawyer for Woodbridge gave it to another law firm to do the work on, so I'm sure that now the town is writing a check. To me, this is the biggest waste of time, money for you, them, all of us, as taxpayers, as locals, and there has just gotta be an easier way to go about it. And I'm sure that there is plenty of avenues to do it, and that's unfortunately your job and not mine. But my opinion is it would be great for you to help these people out. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Guess I'm up. I'm gonna stay up because that chair doesn't rolls too much. But, no, you got soft shoes on, I don't wanna hurt it. Jim Zioli, been a farmer all my life, turned 64 a few weeks ago, so that's a long time. I was the one, I had my zoning enforcement officer send to Christine what Orange has for that special exception 4-page document, and I also forwarded it to the chair with a note. And that was driven by the fact that in your discussion last time, you said that you were looking at updating some of your regulations. So the reason I wanted to submit that was not just for this quiz situation, but for your future possibility, it's a good idea to have considered something along this line. And that was Bobby's time, not mine. And,
Sorry.
that's fine. So I think that is very important to consider. That was driven when basically a new farm evolved. It was a little questionable and all, and others got up in arms. There's only about 8 of us in town that are actually active, but each of us filled out one of these applications, and it questions all your sign locations, products you sell, when you operate, et cetera, et cetera. It goes on. You have to submit a site plan with it as well, whether you have greenhouses, a stand, all these sort of things, all go with it. And it helps in the fact that if somebody then calls, in this case, Ms. Sullivan, and says, you know, they have these signs there. Well, yes, and they have a special exception permit that allows this. We change our signs for each of the seasons. I mean, there's pumpkin signs we use, now we'll be changing them over to evergreen trees. The spring we do have flower ones. Vegetables, there's corn ones that go up in the summer season. But this way, it stays kind of uniform and it stays kind of controlled. If it goes beyond what was filled out on the application, they're gonna get a call from your zoning enforcement officer, and either they have to update what they're doing or just comply with what they had originally submitted. There are less and less of us, as a couple of the earlier speakers had said. All of our farms are fragments of the farms that they were, quite honestly. And I think it's pretty important. I know it's important to the town of Orange, and I believe the town of Woodbridge also, Bethany, I'm gonna say also, to keep what pieces of farms that we still maintain. It was so important to Woodbridge. You have the Mazzaro farm, which you back and fund up there to keep as a community farm that offers all kinds of goodness to people of Orange, Woodbridge, Bethany, and beyond, New Haven, West Haven. I know people who go there. But I also sat on the State of Connecticut Farmland Preservation Advisory Board for 9.5 years under Commissioner Crelly and Commissioner Ravisky. And we worked tirelessly to preserve farms. Some years we preserved maybe 5, some years we preserved 16 or 18 by purchasing development rights to those farms. So the state of Connecticut is very in tune with this demand and desire also. Then you have the open space and watershed side of it also, where the town of Orange, at least, I don't know if Bethany has, but we've taken $500,000 grants from the DEP to preserve land other than agricultural land. So, I mean, it's better if you can get a property owner to preserve it, own it, maintain it, pay the taxes on it, instead of the town's owning it, which, yeah, it protects quality of life, flora, fauna, all the animal life and everything like that, but there's no benefit of revenue coming from it. You lose that, and you lose a lifestyle that is going on for hundreds of years. Wendy says that farm was a farm from the start of time. Well, Bladen's Brook was the northern boundary of the Milford colony for a long time, all the way up into Seymour. And that's the brook that runs right through by their farm, so that's gotta be about somewhere between 1639 and 1646. So, I mean, it does go way back, and we need to consider that. But I think that what Mr. Fantarella said, the amount of time, energy, and money that has been spent on this on both sides of the aisle over a couple signs and then seasonal changes to those signs is ridiculous. My attorney said to me one day, I was really biting my lip about something we did, and he says, you have to figure out and look at the cost analysis sometimes of which is the better way to take the fight. And I've remembered that and done it sometimes, and this is one of those. Geez Louise, I mean, for what gain? For 2 signs that may have a Christmas tree on them, or an ice cream cone, or a bunch of flowers, or a pumpkin? The people of Woodbridge and Bethany really Seymour, everybody who goes there deserve the opportunity to go there. They deserve the right to be able to sell at that location, and a couple directional signs. I think the people appreciate the more country-ish, I'll call them, looking signs than the state brown banner signs on two steel posts that are 6.5 or 7.5 feet up in the air. A couple signs are gonna cost them $4,000 probably. The state used to give them away to the Department of Agriculture. They don't anymore. It's a lot of money for what? A couple ugly brown signs as opposed to something that looks a little more community oriented. Please consider this application, and I hope you rule on it favorably.
Thank you. Other members of the public who'd like to make public comment? Sure. Please come up, sign in if you don't mind.
I'm Colleen Colbert. I own 265 Seymour Road, Woodbridge. I'm not prepared in full to share what I'm about to share. It came to me. I feel very fortunate to own that spot. I appreciate farming. I didn't grow up as a farmer. I grew up Midwest. But I must tell you, in the last 16 years, I have seen so much and I've heard so much. How people don't like the lights there, and how the lights started the accidents. I see accidents frequently, and another one happened tonight. But I also have received a lot of aggression. And I wonder, what is it about that corner? What's so prized about it? What's so interesting about it? So I feel two sides of a coin. I feel so grateful for it, its history. Purchased in the 1700s. The house went up probably, the records, it's on the historical register, went up about 1782 to 1880 is roughly the measure, 1880. And then the barn, which is the second barn. And the land went out 16 acres, which probably ran into the Crizzes. And yes, there was a dairy farm, and the dairy farm went down. Parts of it, and the second barn still stands. But I also received a call from someone who expressed, first a text and then a call, that was the person, self-disclosed, that she wrote the letter. And how, as a historical property, how in the world could I allow a sign on the edge of my property? These are constant comments that I receive as an owner. The traffic is horrendous. It drives frequently. It doesn't give even the decency of anyone who comes to work on the farm any graciousness. I welcome the community that brings in honest, good, wholesome feelings. And I also live in a community that isn't tolerating it. I hope you agree that we can give some graciousness here and find a way to restore some of that element of wholesomeness and allow communities to live together. I think the sign is a wonderful joy. I welcome it, you know I welcome it, and that's what I have to say. I feel bothness, if I can say it that way. I feel the hostility sometimes on that corner, and I feel the openness and the welcomeness that people feel when they come to get ice cream or to enjoy the horses. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to make public comment? And please sign in. Thank you.
My name is Jim Urbano from Woodbridge. I served on the town's Conservation Commission for 3 terms, have done a lot to help protect our town's farmland. You know, there are rules and regulations, and then there's common sense. The Chris Farm is a member of our community. It's an asset. It lends to the quality of life here, and we should accommodate its needs. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Sorry, guys.
It's warm in here.
Would anyone else care to make public comment? Anyone else like to make public comment? And I'll ask the third time, would anyone else like to make public comment? All right. Hearing none, or no further public comment, we do need a motion to close the public hearing portion of this application for a special exception for permit for wayfinding or directional signs at the Bear Hill / Seymour Road and Acorn Hill / Seymour Road intersections directing folks to Chris Farm Ice Cream. Do we have a motion to close the public hearing? Moved.
Second.
Seconded. Motion made, moved, and seconded. Any further discussion? Closing the public hearing. Seeing none. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? So we're going to close our public hearing. I want to thank, first of all, the staff for managing the public hearing, the commission for being good listeners, and for questions of the applicant, and I look forward to our deliberations in our work session. I want to thank the applicants for your informative presentations throughout this process, but most of all, I want to thank the public hearing for for their participation in the process, both here this session and in our session a month ago, and through your written comments. It is greatly appreciated. Thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedules. So with that, we can pivot to new business.
New business.
Okay, thank you, folks. And if folks do need a moment to, you're welcome to stay, obviously. But our next up on our agenda, I can find it. I believe is our Litchfield Turnpike 10 and 14 Merritt Avenue application for subdivision for 14 lots. This is a subdivision that had been previously approved, but the Mylar was not filed in a timely fashion. So I look forward to the applicant explaining why we're back again. Thank you. Do I need this for Chris or? It's just the February 9th.
Oh, it's the original approval?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. And, for the record, my name is John Nuff. I'm an attorney with an office at 135 Broad Street in Milford, and here tonight on behalf of the applicant, Litchfield Turnpike LLC. As you know, Mr. Chairman, in February of this year, the commission unanimously approved the subdivision application after a 2-night public hearing. There was considerable back and forth with the Woodbridge Land Trust in terms of the conditions under which they would accept the open space. They have agreed to accept that open space. They have signed the deed as required, and we got one extension for the recording of the Mylar. And candidly, just through the miscommunication with the client, who is my understanding who's going to be recording the Mylar, the Mylar was not recorded. And this is the one type of approval that there's really no going back. If you miss the deadline, you miss the deadline, and you have to restart the clock. And so that's what this application is for, simply to restart the clock for the filing of the Mylar. Nothing has changed from the application that you considered. Nothing has changed from the application that the Inland Wetland Commission unanimously approved. So John Paul Garcia is here. He can remind you, if you'd like, what the subdivision, how the property lines are proposed, if you feel the need to do that.
Before we get there, Attorney Nuff, can you please walk us through why this is the one type of thing that couldn't be just a
Right,
simple
so-
extension?
So under the statutes, so a special permit runs with the land. Recorded in the land records, it runs the land. A site plan approval runs for like 7 or 9 or 10 years, I can't recall which. But the subdivision approval has the statute has a very specific time limit. It says you measure within 90 days from the expiration of the appeal period of the approval, you must record the Mylar. If it's not recorded, you can get a 90-day extension. We got one of those. But the statute also says that if you fail to file the Mylar within that time period, whether it's the initial 90 days or any extension, that the approval is void. And that's what happened in this case. The Mylar, in fact, was sitting in the land use office, waiting to be recorded, and no one came to record it. It's as simple as that.
Well, you might want to talk about the open space issue.
No, but I mean, that's sort of immaterial, so yes, we spent a lot of time.
Do we
with
need
the-
another public hearing?
Do we
Mr.
have to have
Chairman?
another public hearing, Attorney Nuff?
No, I don't think the first one required a public hearing either.
This is a subdivision, so it
Oh,
doesn't
correct,
automatically
correct.
require one. It does abut New Haven, so I have forwarded it yet again to the Regional Planning Commission for review. I asked that it could be put on their November 9th, no, this Thursday's meeting, that it be put on that meeting. I haven't gotten confirmation from them that they have or haven't.
I do want to get back to what you said at the very end, that it was sitting in.
No, so the
in the-
Mylar itself had been signed, and I believe it was in Christine's office.
It's been sitting next to me forever.
And candidly, no one came to retrieve it, to record it. A lot of the time, I don't want to get into the details of, I've spoken on many times with Jerry Weiner about being able to record the Mylar before the land trust had officially agreed to accept the open space. The land trust had a number of conditions, all of which we have agreed to comply with, including, paying for the attorney's fees, for the title insurance, for a $5,000 fee to maintain the property into the future. So we've agreed to do all those things, providing them a phase one. Their attorney and I had a considerable back and forth, and things just got delayed, frankly. Other matters came to her attention, and so there was a delay in the period when we were waiting for approval from Attorney Weiner and from the land trust attorney that we could go forward with the recording the Mylar. And during that time, the time just expired. Simple as that.
And I sent them an email with all the dates and numbers so they could do the math and correct me if I was wrong, but nobody corrected me.
I mean, in terms of the referral to New Haven, nothing's changed. I mean, so, whatever they said last time is going to be relevant to this application.
I was just seeing if there really was no way to.
There is
get
no
around.
way. As I said, it is the one approval under the statutes that there's no going back. Once you miss that deadline, you are starting from scratch.
The deadline was in August.
Who was the one that failed to record this Mylar?
The applicant,
Were they just lazy? What happened? Did they,
don't know.
Was there
It's
something
been sitting
wrong?
next to my elbow for months.
is there something wrong that? we're
Chad, you
not
have to
aware
get closer to the
of? Is
mic.
there something wrong that we're not aware of that caused them not
I
to do
think it
that?
says Attorney Nuff said that they just, for whatever reason,
There was so much back and forth between Attorney Nuff and the other attorneys involved, between getting the correct title, getting a phase one, getting everything. And I've never seen, we needed 90 days plus a 90-day extension, and I think the ball just got to, it's one of those things that doesn't happen very often. I've been doing this 40 years, and I think this is only the second time. But there was so much back and forth between Attorney Nuff, town attorney, and the Conservation Commission's attorney, that I think it just,
land
I had
trust,
the
land,
Mylar.
land trust attorney.
and the land trust, whatever, it just,
Okay.
who happens?
So the question before us is what? Do we,
Simply asking you to approve the new application with the exact same application that you approved back in February.
other than having to wait for New Haven to weigh in?
Well, the regional
The-
planning.
I mean,
commission.
the SCROG,
Yeah.
that's what I meant.
There's,
So if once before there was found to be no negative intermunicipal impact, nor negative impact to the environment of the Long Island Sound, that will be
Got
the
it.
decision again.
And when I sent it to them, there's a place on their form where you submit it that says, has this been before us before? And I gave them the date of the letter that they wrote us saying exactly that. So,
But that means we have to just put this on our next meeting, or, because we can't act on it until,
I'm not an
That
attorney, I don't play them. But I would
The,
assume,
the notice is exclusive to them. This is not like a notice that has to appear in a newspaper, and if it doesn't appear in the newspaper properly, it's jurisdictional. It's not a jurisdictional notice. I mean, if the commission were inclined to approve it this evening or approve it conditioned upon receipt of the comments from New Haven, listen, I'm among the most cautious land use practitioners out there. I would have no objection to that.
Well, we don't need a public hearing? Did I hear that correctly?
No, not for,
correct,
not
because
for a
it's just a
subdivision.
subdivision.
it's a subdivision.
I think we chose to have a public hearing. and
You
this is
chose to
right.
have one last time because you felt it was in the public interest, but not because,
But this is a
That's right.
inadvertent sort of trip over one of our statutory
It's
requirements.
akin to a scrivener's mistake. In this
That's
case, it's
where I was
just,
going, yeah.
candidly, miscommunication. I thought the client was going to come in and file the Mylar. Didn't happen.
So,
Will they do so this time around?
I'm sorry?
Will they do so this time around? Okay.
I promise you they will.
Just wanted you on the record.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And listen, I apologize for, wasting your time this evening. It's just, there's no other options, as I said.
so I would entertain, or I will offer a motion to approve the application for the subdivision of this property contingent on receipt of Scroggs' letter confirming they've not changed from their prior position.
My only question, Mr. Chairman, is do we have to wait till
Oh,
the
the
work session to do that?
Yeah, you're probably right. Is that probably what we have to do that?
you can, I don't, just get it done. I didn't put it in the work session because I thought you were going to continue it to December.
Well, your agenda says receipt, discussion, appropriate action regarding new application site development plans. So appropriate action could be an approval.
So I'm encouraging you to continue along the lines that you were doing a moment ago.
Okay, so I have made a motion to approve the application for subdivision at 10 and 14 Merritt Avenue, contingent upon receiving the letter, what is our formal, what do we formally call the Scroggs letter?
Regional Planning Commission.
The Regional Planning Commission's letter of no impacts on the region or Long Island Sound.
I'll second that motion with an added statement that even if Scroggs were to change its position, it is not binding upon us. It's only advisory, and they have no authority to stop anything. That's the reality.
You are on that commission.
That's from our member who belongs with
Yeah.
the regional planning.
But I still,
Okay.
They don't even bring the pizza anymore.
They don't bring pizza anymore now.
I still want that letter to come to us regardless of what it says. It just needs to come to us. So
And I'll
moved,
let you know whatever it says
Yeah.
whenever it comes.
so moved and seconded. Any,
I have a comment for you, because,
Sure.
Again, I didn't think you were gonna be acting on this tonight, so the conservation, no, I don't think it's from the Conservation Commission, because they hadn't met. Tim Austin, who is a member of the Conservation Commission, wrote a two-page letter which, was discussing your ability to, look at who the open space gets given to. I did not give you a copy tonight, because again, I thought you were gonna be deferring this until December.
you had sent it to us.
Oh,
via
did I
email.
send it to you? Oh, well then, hey, I did a wonderful job and I emailed it to you.
Maybe I got it.
Or maybe he CC'd you.
What was?
This was
I don't
from
remember
Tim
seeing it.
Austin, so he saw the agenda, saw that it was on the agenda, and then thought there could be a second bite at the apple, I guess, regarding to whom the open space goes. And I said, it was my belief that having once approved this with how you approved it, that there wasn't probably gonna be a deviation from that, given all the work that's been gone into, to have it go to whom it's going,
To the land trust.
land trust.
I mean, is there any question that that might not happen, or do you think it's just a matter of recording the Mylar?
I'm sorry, could you say it one more time?
Do you think there's a possibility that the land trust may decide not to take
No,
it?
in fact, they've already signed the deed, so it's unusual that the grantee signs the deed, but there's a statute that requires them to do so. They really want to get it done this year, frankly, because they just want it on the books before the year ends. So, no, there's no chance that they are going to no longer accept it.
Okay, so they didn't have any issues with the phase one or whatever else you had?
No, we gave them phase one, it's completely clean. We literally gave them everything they asked for.
Does Mr. Austin know that?
Yes, I told him that. There may or may not be some
Yeah, so it
rubbing
was,
between,
it was only sent to you and me.
okay.
I was just checking my email.
Why are people sending things to you?
Yeah, they shouldn't.
What they shouldn't be sending to you?
And it's framed as a public comment for something that isn't open for public
Oh.
comment, so I'm
And I said that.
going to disregard it. So, back to where we were. It's been moved and seconded to approve, subject to receiving the word for what, the comments for whatever they're worth from Scrog. Any further discussion?
And there are no changes to the
None.
plan?
No,
Nothing.
it's all the same.
Okay.
We can't get another off-street parking spot out of this?
We did, it's
Come
actually
on,
moved the house around, we got
please.
another one.
All right, then, let's move ahead.
So you'll give me an updated Mylar?
What's that, you got it?
Is
That
that-
Mylar reflects all the changes.
I need a new one because it's dated and signed with an old date.
I moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approving, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions?
Come on, John.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Have a pleasant holiday.
It's just me costing people money. What can I tell
Do me a favor, Chris,
Yeah.
send me an email, I'll send you a Mylar. I'll bring the Mylar down.
you? You have to bring it, yes. Thank you.
I'll bring it down tomorrow. I'll send you an email.
Okay.
Next up is the application of Jim Urbano for 245 Amity Road, an application for a drive-through window for a pharmacy in Unit 10 of 245 Amity Road. Hello, Mr. Urbano. Does he need to sign in again, Chris,
Do I?
or no?
Yes, because this is a different thing.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
This is just me making everybody come back before you. What can I tell you? You get paid so much.
So, in 2007, when I went through the approval process for 245 Amity Road, we had interest in the end unit in question, which is number 111, on the east side of the, east end of the building, for a pharmacy. And so, at that time, talking to Terry Gilbertson, the pharmacist wanted the ability to do curbside drop-off, curbside service to a car. That was Michelle McKayling, if you remember, the Woodbridge Pharmacy. So I did a circulation plan for Terry. This is after the project had been approved, more or less, in order to justify putting a side door there. The original building plan did not have a side door on the east end, east side. So there was a circulation plan, at least administratively approved then, that allowed us to have a side door drop-off at the Michelle's Pharmacy, the Woodbridge Pharmacy. The slab on that side The existing slab is a structural slab. Always anticipated doing a proper window at some point. That pharmacy didn't survive. The Red Barn took over, and that side door drop-off or curbside pickup worked for it. Now the space is leased by a new pharmacy. The pharmacist is Yasser Shahada. He has an existing pharmacy in Trumbull. He's a Woodbridge resident. He lives at Amity and Route 69, I'm sorry, Litchfield and 69. 3 kids, 2 in the school system. He'll be walking to work. But they require a proper drive-up window. So the circulation plan I gave to Bob Dillon when I got the building permit for the drive-up window is lost. So I had Ron Zocher redo it, and you have a copy of it. Do you have questions regarding the circulation plan?
No, thank you, Mr. Urbano, and
Certainly.
I appreciate your submission. My question is, under what part of our zoning rules are we approving a pharmacy drive-up window?
You had a site plan where you, well, this is part of the site plan that originally that you approved that Terry didn't see. No, the one that you approved didn't have a drive-through. So Terry supposedly saw one. I don't know, because I wasn't the EO at that point. So because it's a drive-through and because there are regulations under there and it should be shown as part of your site plan, I had him here, coming here very simply to amend the site plan to include the
Thank you.
drive-through.
All right, so this is a request to amend a site plan.
It's just simply amending the site plan to have the drive-through. It's showing the circulation, which is all within the confines of the property. There's no extension out into the road. When Starbucks had theirs, they changed their queue lines because they had people going out. This shows the circulation all being contained within the on-site parking area and driving area of the 245 Amity.
And Mr. Albano, there is an effective drive-through associated with Saloon Restaurant.
Yes.
Is there not? Any issues with that?
Zero. And that's not really been used. It was used during COVID.
Yeah, that's where I remember it from.
Yeah.
And it worked during COVID, no problem.
Originally, when I built it, I'm sorry?
It worked during COVID, no problem.
Yes, it did.
Right.
There are no issues at all. That's at the west end of the building,
Right.
under the bridge. Originally, we had a bank as a prospective tenant for that building, and that fell through with the financial crisis. So that's why that drive-through window was there, and that's why we had that Q study done and approved initially.
And so, Chris, back to procedure, what is?
All I need you to do, if you're amenable to it, is to just amend the original site plan approval to include the drive-through as shown on this plan.
And to include yourselves as customers of the pharmacy once it opens.
I don't think that's in our purview necessarily, but Kathy, did you have a question?
Yeah, I mean, this was approved by the building department in terms of the design?
I have a building permit already.
Okay, all right.
They're looking at structural stuff
Right.
versus the use.
I'll make a motion to amend the site plan to include the drive-through for the unit on the east end of the building.
Moved. Seconded. Any further discussion amongst commission members?
I do have a question. Are there, and I ask because I just don't know, are there requirements for traffic flow and clearance and curbs and whatnot for such a thing?
They're in your regulations.
Okay. I haven't been able to look at those, so.
There are two or three pages that have met every requirement, exceeded the stacking study.
So this is section 5.7.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie, are there any specific questions on 5.7?
I don't, I haven't reviewed 5.7, so I don't have any questions. I'm just not knowledgeable enough to.
Oh, I'm sorry,
ask a question.
5.17D, my bad.
But Christine, you're saying it is compliant with those regulations based on your.
Based on my review of it, it appears to be compliant.
Understood, thank you.
Yeah, this is in the old book, page 97, about drive-through windows and queue spaces. Yeah, so we have 2 pages worth of standards for adequate spaces.
And the curb cuts are existing. Circulation's been in place for 12, 13 years now. And no issues with that.
They're in the middle of a motion. So
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Chadi, are there any specific concerns you might have?
My only concern is that, there are a lot of other businesses that are used in this facility. So I just wanna make sure that the traffic from the window doesn't interfere with people coming and going to their destination and parking. That's all.
Yeah,
just
I
have
think that
appreciation
is
for that.
part of the circulation plan and the sort of graphic that the parking area, so it basically has already been designed with this extra wedge of car space that anticipates that part of that space will be occupied potentially by a car or two that's waiting in line at the drive-through window, but still leave enough space if there are cars at the drive-through window to have enough circulation and movement around the parking, which has not been packed in all that tightly over on that part of the parking area.
And is there any concern with pedestrians going from one of the businesses to this side of the parking lot?
You're in the middle of a motion and you can't, when you're in the middle of a motion, you can discuss amongst yourselves. You can't direct any motion.
That is the end building, so I don't think
Yeah.
that would be an issue.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. So the site plan amendment has been approved. Please send our regards to our pharmacists.
Thank you for your help. Thank you.
Okay, next up is another one that's coming back in front of us.
Yes, and they're not here because this is a special exception. It does require a hearing. They're at the end of their permit. I always say you have to, submit for renewal in a timely fashion, but I guess nobody reads permits. But anyway, so they're coming back. This is just for the north side because obviously the site work's been done on the south side.
Right.
So what you got sent, or it's in your packet, is just for that south or north side. So it just needs to be scheduled for a public hearing.
Can we schedule it for a public hearing for December?
Yes, that would be my request that you do it then.
And this one, we don't need SCROG?
No, because it's not within 500 feet of municipal boundary. And you've already had your engineer review it. They're not changing anything on this side. You've already had this is just the excavation part, so.
Yep.
The only thing you would have needed would be the engineer review.
And again, nothing has changed.
Nope.
This one, again, could have been renewed.
This could have been renewed, yeah.
Timing issues.
So, do you need a motion?
Please.
Motion to set this for a public hearing on their special permit for earth removal, fill, et cetera, regarding to the property at 1722 Litchfield Turnpike.
So moved.
Moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? So it's scheduled for our next regularly scheduled meeting in December. Okay. So that's the conclusion of our new business, and we can now move to our work session. And I'd like to, our main item for our work session is the special exception permit application for the two wayfinding or directional signs related to Chris Farm Ice Cream. The signs being located at Bear Hill and Seymour Roads and Acorn Hill and Seymour Roads. So I'll open up to our council members before we actually have a motion, just to discuss kind of everyone's approach to the public hearing we had this time and last time.
Rob, procedurally, Mr. Zioli had noted that he also sent you directly an email with that. Should you just note for the record that you got that email? Did you get one?
I don't think he sent one directly to me, or did he send one to you and me?
He said he sent it to you.
No, I don't recall receiving one.
So I'll just make a point of stressing to everybody not to send you stuff.
Emails, yes. Yeah, no, I don't think he did. Okay, so back to our request for these wayfaring signs. People's, commission members' reactions, thoughts on our potential approach here.
I'll open it by saying it's possible that our regulations have some ambiguity that we ought to clean up, not necessarily taken into consideration right now with this request for the special exception. But with respect to the special exception that's been requested, I'm in favor of it. I think we should move forward with it. I do think we should maintain special exception language for these types of signs throughout town or in certain parts of the town. But specific to the specific special exception, I'm in favor of it.
Thank you, Jeff. Other comments, reactions from commission?
I would agree with Jeff that it would be appropriate for us to exercise our discretion in approving the application for special exception in this instance.
Other thoughts, reactions from commission members?
You know, I have to say, I kind of stand firm with what I had said last time, that even though I love ice cream, I love farms, I just kind of go by what the regulations say, and I just felt the regulations was pretty clear that we do not allow a sign in a residential area where the product is not produced. That was clear in the the applicability section, and I know, and I think that when you look at the table, that has to be looked at in concert with the applicability section, because the table does talk about, let's see, goes to, the freestanding sign erected or placed perpendicular or parallel to the public street or highway which the building or structure fronts or abuts. It's referring to a building or a structure, which is referring to the fact that there's something on the site where the product is being produced. So that kind of pertains to how you apply that. So, and subsequently, when I received both attorneys' letter from August 3rd and August 7th, it kind of affirmed what I had said initially, that our zoning regulations do not allow that. And I think the letters went through the analysis to show that our regulations do not allow a sign that's in a residential area that's not on the property where the product is produced. And to me, that's clear, and when I read the attorney's opinion, it made it clearer that my analysis was at least in sync with what, you know, the attorney, which I imagine is somebody who's an expert in this area. And so we had an attorney who's an expert in this area, even in our own attorney saying that the zoning regulations were enforced appropriately. And again, you know, I'm just going by what our regulations say. If there's a will to change that, then we should perhaps look to change our regulations. But right now, as they stand, our regulations, to me, clearly say that this type of sign is not permitted.
Other members of the commission?
I wanted to claim credit for having watched, I believe it was 2 zoning board of appeal hearings. I did watch them at 1.5 speed, maybe even 1.75 at parts, but I think that should exempt me from something at some point. But in all seriousness, I concur with the other 2 members of the commission that, particularly Attorney Skolnick, in the point that he made, which was that we do have the discretion, regardless of the fact by the strict reading of the law, as both as I read the regulations and as interpreted by the attorney that was consulted with by the town, that on its face these signs may not be permitted, but we do have the discretion under the special exception request, the application for special exception, to grant the application, and so I would vote in favor of granting the special exception for the signs.
Chadi, any comments?
I have a question on conflict. Chris Farm donates hay to my wife's foundation every year for an event.
Yeah.
I'm a board member of her foundation, so I don't know if that is a conflict at all.
I'm not an attorney, I
Yeah,
don't play one.
so, you are always,
You would have to make that decision
yeah.
yourself.
You're capable of making that decision yourself, and you should feel, you know, free if you feel there is a conflict or even an appearance of a conflict that you'd rather abstain. Will we have enough?
You still have
Quorum.
5 members.
Fine.
Am I allowed to provide an opinion and not vote?
Probably
would
not.
be-
Not if
no,
you
would
feel
be
you're
If you're
abstaining.
choosing that you're gonna abstain, you get to sit there.
I'm gonna choose to abstain, I think.
Appreciate
And
you.
if you're abstaining, you need to leave the room.
For the, right now, or for the vote? Okay.
Sorry, Chuck.
No, that's okay.
I'll wait till Chadi goes. So, and I too have read the attorney's opinion, I've read the statute, our regulations myself, but I also watched the ZBA hearings at 1.5 speed as well. And went back to, so I do agree that we do have discretion within our special exception process. In addition, I note that our signage regulations themselves state as part of their purpose that our signs are there to provide, or the standards are there to provide, reasonable standards, but also in aiding in preserving and enhancing the aesthetic and historical values of the community, of which farming is one of those values. So I do know that's section 4.5A. So in those circumstances and with that narrowing of this decision, particularly focused on its relationship to agriculture and farming, I would be in favor of allowing these 2 signs to go ahead. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the request for, let me get it right. Motion to approve the Chris Farm Ice Cream LLC's special exception permit for 2 wayfinding directional signs at the northwest corners of Bear Hill and Seymour Roads and the southeast corner of Acorn Hill and Seymour Roads.
I'll make a motion to approve the application for special exception permit to erect 2 wayfinding or directional signs off-site in Woodbridge on the northwest corner of Bear Hill and Seymour Roads and the southeast corner of Acorn Hill and Seymour Roads, and just add that so long as they are not greater in size than what is there now.
So that's the motion in front of us. Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion amongst commission members?
I mean, my other concern is, you know, in terms of our being subjective to what we see is, you know, offensive, not offensive. And I guess, I think regulations should be, you know, cut and dry for the most part. And the fact that this is like providing us some subjective as to where we can have signs. We can have signs for a farm, but we might decide we can't have a farm for a cannabis retailer, or we can't have a sign for a wine shop because we don't see that as good as a farm. I don't know how else to say it. I just think it's becoming subjective now in terms of how we decide what is, you know, good and what is bad when it comes to signs. So I just like to think of regulations to be objective, to give us guidance as to what is right and what is wrong.
Thank you, Kathy. I'll just add, continue to note that I think agriculture is often held different throughout our statutes, across tons of our different rules and regulations. So that's partly what's informing my decision, is that there's already a distinction often made for agricultural operations and usage, which I think this would be consistent with that overall. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? One opposed, and no abstentions.
One abstention.
Oh, one abstention, sorry. Because he's not here to abstain.
Well, he's out there, so now
He's
you have
out
to
there.
go get him so you can bring him back in.
Okay.
But I have a question for you, because now that you've decided
Yep.
and whatnot, brought up in the course of this public hearing were the signs for the Bethany Farm. And so here you again have a farm, and so I need direction from you, because I clearly have no clue how to interpret your right.
Should we get shouted for this?
You can get shouting.
But we're now done with.
You've made a decision, so this is
Okay.
a generic question, which has to do with what I do with the next sign. So the next sign is the sign that you've seen, and there are actually two signs that are there. One of the signs is at 229 Seymour Road, where they actually have frontage. That sign has been there before, when that property was operated by Ace Pagonis. That's what started that particular business there. It was Ace Pagonis. And then it got purchased by this company. Now, this company also owns the property that's on the corner, the first sign that you see in that picture that got submitted. That sign, as Betsy Cliss, who somehow feels that I'm being selective, I guess, in enforcement, but anyway, that's okay. That particular sign is not on the property where the farm operates, Bethany Farm operates. It's not contiguous. It's separated by other parcels that don't join it. So, there's two signs, and on the property at 229 Seymour, there's not only the sign that says Bethany Farm, he now has another big sign for which he has received no permit. He has flag signs for which your regulations say that you can't use them. And then we have this sign that sits up on the corner. So before I go wasting people's money, what would you like me to do?
Well, have there been,
I don't have to have complaints.
no,
I
well,
know this
let me
is
just
there.
ask, have there been any complaints other than the one that pertained to this?
And there was more than one person who complained about the other sign. So, and just to put that.
Publicly, in writing?
Not in writing, and the other person didn't put it in writing either. Because as I've said many times, when a complaint goes in, the first thing I do is I go out and look and see, is there something here that's actually a zoning violation, and then I go from there. And obviously, there's a process to follow through, which is gone through here. So in this particular case, I have observed, because I've been in this area, that I have several signs which I think rise to the occasion of something, if nothing else, saying you need a special exception sign permit because you don't have one, because that sign that's on the first page doesn't have a special exception permit, although they do own the property. And under what you're saying, or your decision was tonight, it doesn't matter if the property isn't where the thing is.
Yeah.
You know, as long as you've got consent, you can do that. So I can send them a letter and say, you need to submit a special exception permit for the sign on this property. There's a second sign. Your regulations don't make a provision for having 2 freestanding signs, but I'm not sure that the second sign is actually on that limited frontage of 229. It may actually be on another frontage that's there, so I'd have to check
This one?
that out.
These
Yeah.
two?
Yeah, see
one- this one?
long one, right. So the one that's kind of, you can see in either direction going down Seymour Road, that one's been there and just had its fascia changed. And that actually may be on the highway setback. I'd have to double check.
And the second sign being the circular sign right on the driveway that you,
There's a circular sign, yeah, and then, I don't know if, I didn't see
so there's only
that.
2 signs shown in this photograph.
And there for a while, they had a bunch of flag signs, the feather signs up there. So I just need some directions so that I'm not gonna waste anybody's time.
And there are other signs, like when you drive around from time to time in Woodbridge, I will see a sign.
I don't know of any other signs in Woodbridge, Bethany, or Orange for farms that are not in the town in which they are located. This is the only sign that I know of in all of the 3 towns where it is located in a town other than the town in which the business is located, which again may be something where you reach out to your constituents in Orange and Bethany and say, we've been taken forward with supporting community farms. Would you also take this step to do likewise? Because they don't have signs in their towns
So
for other farms.
what about the billboards on Route 69 that advertise businesses that are not within the town of
Those are
Woodbridge?
billboards, and those are not under the control of this agency.
Not
Neither
under
is
the control of what, I'm sorry?
under the control of you,
Oh.
and neither is the billboard that's on the corner of Bradley Road and Amity Road. There's a large billboard.
Yes,
Yep. Those are billboards, and they're totally
regulated differently.
regulated differently. They do not,
By the town of Woodbridge or by the state of Connecticut?
I guess the state, they're exempt from you.
Hmm.
So I just need some direction so that I can go forward.
Am I allowed to comment on this?
Yeah, you are now, yes.
Yeah.
'Cause we're-
I think it's only fair that you ask the other towns to come here, or ask for the exception, sorry.
I think it would just be simply writing to the boards and just saying, you know, through this process, the idea of acting as a community, the BOW community, and if you're comfortable saying as it relates to farms, is something that we should collectively allow for wayfaring signs or whatever you wanna do.
Because there's also a sign for Town Line Farm on the corner of 243 and Baldwin Road. Baldwin Road, yeah. So if we had, I don't know how you guys voted, but if you had Chris Farm come in here and they required an exception, then I think it's only natural that you'd have any other farms,
Chad, I think you have to get a little closer to the mic, sorry.
any other farms request the same.
And there again, that may or may not be on state highway setback. I'd have to look at it.
So if it's on state highway setback, then they
Then
do
this,
not.
that, and this again is where repeatedly people were talking about the golf sign, and no matter how many times I say, it's on the state highway setback, it's on the state highway setback. We have no jurisdiction over it, or not. I'm not picking or choosing, and I held off on doing anything with the other signs because I needed to see how this shook out. Because I needed to see how it shook out.
Did you guys accept their sign?
And I would strongly encourage you to update your regs.
Yeah, so that's where I was gonna go, that
Yeah, that's
some
clear.
clarity here would be helpful in our regulations, which I think we can, achieve, particularly on, the opportunity for farming operations to advertise both on the location of where they're located and other locations approved through special exception permit. To the extent that we alert our neighbors in Bethany and Orange that this is our plan and our path, I'm fine with having a letter sent to them that this is the direction we're heading, and we'd encourage them to have similar or reciprocal regulations. So as a three-town Amity community, we're all doing what we can to support farming operations.
I agree with that. Makes sense.
Okay. Is that sufficient direction for you?
That's fine.
On
In
these
terms of that,
specific-
now I need to know what to
Yeah.
do with that other sign, since passively this evening I've been accused of not enforcing that.
So, our options are either to have Chris send them a notice to, conform with the decision, that we've made tonight for Chris Farm, which is a single sign meeting the requirements of our sign regulations to the extent that these are wayfaring signs, and if these do not conform with that, we can alert them to that fact and have them come in for a special exception permit. The other option is to notify them that we are updating our sign regulations, and they can participate in that process and weigh in as we develop sign regulations for farms and farm operations.
I mean, at this stage of the game, because it's been brought to light that this sign exists and there has been no enforcement, I would respectfully ask that I send them a letter and ask them to submit an application, at least for the sign that's on the property that's closest to Bear Hill and Seymour Road. The other one I've got to do a little bit of footwork on because I'm really not sure which parcel that's on.
This is the one that's close to Bear Hill and.
No.
No, this one.
No, the first one.
Can I just clarify what we have authorization in terms of signage? Because my understanding under state statutes, 8.2, is that we're only authorized to regulate advertising signs, not directional signs and things of that sort. So I just wanted, that's why I had some questions. Is this advertising? Is this directional? Because we don't have the authority to regulate directional signs. We have authority only to regulate advertising signs.
I'm not an attorney. I don't play one. And I'm not being flippant when I say that. This particular sign has been interesting because it was given to you as a wayfaring sign,
Right,
and
it
yet
was
throughout the discussion, it was brought up that it's an advertising
Yes.
sign, and whatnot. In other communities, you quite often will see wayfaring signs showing you, turns and bends to get to farms, because farms aren't always on a main track, and whatnot. I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. I can try to get you an answer. I don't know where it will come from, because I know town council is stepping down at the end of this year, so, but I can ask.
I think that this 1/4 mile on the left sign about which we are speaking is every bit as much advertising as it is directional, the same way that Fritz Farm
Chris's one, yeah.
was.
So I mean, I think that one clearly, as long as it's size compliant with what your regulations are for that kind of a sign. But that's the larger sign. I'm spend any time or energy looking at it because I didn't need to deal with that.
So back to the narrow question, I'm fine with having Chris reach out to the owners of this sign and requesting that they submit a special exception permit in light of our decision. Right?
And,
Yeah.
you know, and perhaps I can just ask them to clarify whether or not the other sign is on a second piece of property owned by them, because that, Attorney Marino submitted 2 different maps to you, and so I believe that the second sign, and when you look at this, this is 229 Seymour, and this is 229 Seymour, and in between is 231. Well, I'm pretty sure that the second sign is on what's 229, in which case they already have one sign, which is that circular sign by the road.
Right, so in that communication to that entity, you can find out more details about the second sign.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
And in the meantime, let's try to fix the regulation.
And then there's the third question. So throughout town, you've probably seen many little signs that advertise Chris Ice Cream. Those lawn signs, am I to consider them, well, they're not this special exception sign, because I don't think all those people that put them up are gonna pay $100 to put up a special exception sign for that. The way you've done those signs before, is you allow while someone's having their house painted, or their house is being roofed, or whatever work may be being done, that while that work is in process, that contractor can put a sign out in front advertising their services. But when their services are done, that sign disappears. So what's the message to everybody that's got Chris signs up all over Woodbridge on their front lawns?
Or other entities, are there
They're mainly
regulations?
Chris signs.
Okay, are there regulations at all, or is it?
That's what I
sign-
just told you. Those small signs are typically for advertising a business when you're having a repair or something done at your house. The house is being painted, painting by blah, blah, blah. Your driveway's being paved, paving by blah, blah, blah.
By regulation or by history?
In your
It's in
regulations.
the regulation.
Yeah.
It's in the table.
That specifically permits temporary signs?
Temporary
Yeah, political
advertising
signs,
signs for businesses.
Child graduated from school signs.
Well, those are different than the political signs. The personal opinion signs we don't touch at all, because we have people that like to put up messages for everybody to read.
They're everywhere right now.
Well, no, there's a couple of people who are very inventive and change a couple times a year what the message is, and it's interesting to read. But those are personal messages. That's the freedom of speech kind of sign that we just don't chase. But in this particular sign, you've got a sign that's an advertising directional sign, because it tells you what it is, where it is, but it's not occurring on this business. Is it to be considered, when it's that kind of sign and the business isn't taking place there, a special exception sign? What do I do?
I've actually considered that. I thought about this in the context of this and noticing all those Chris signs, and I think my only input to that would be that it's distracting at an intersection when you're remembering how a stop sign works, and there's a bunch of cars, and you're seeing a bunch of signs. If it's election season and that sort of thing, you know, it's one thing, but when there's properties that are located adjacent to, you know, intersections, I think that's when it becomes a potential public safety, you know, you could say, have to say it's public safety thing. When it's just on somebody's lawn as you're driving down whatever road in this town, I just don't think it's worth, you know, raising it as an issue at this point.
Then you should change your regs.
Yeah, I think we should, yeah. I think we should, our regs should be clear about that.
Because, you know, I, as any enforcement officer,
Yeah, I mean,
can't enforce.
Chris, there's our house, not too far from mine, and they haven't mowed the front lawn in 2 years. And there's some aesthetic beauty to it, depending on one's point of view.
That's blight, that's not me.
But, I mean, I don't know, you know, should we be actively
That's not you, that's a town ordinance.
I
that's
understand, but
what-
I'm talking about just as a town, like how people approach things. I understand it's out of our purview, but I'm just saying rhetorically, Chris, how people think about these things, that's all.
There's
I'm just
people
making a
that
point.
complain about that exact thing, and that's a different entity. That's not me. Used to be me, and I said, I'm not enforcing grass,
Right.
so they took that away.
Is there a blight officer at present?
Yes, Mike Mordansky. You reach him through the selectman's office.
So I think there's an opportunity to put the farm-related signage into our general update of our regulations, which would include things like we were managing tonight and the new one that we were alerted to tonight, and some element of the additional small lawn signs. I do feel though that there should be a limit to how much we are out there policing all of these little signs. I don't. So I think clarity in our regulations will hopefully reduce the amount of effort or complaint, et
And it may
cetera.
just have been a reaction to this whole thing.
Okay.
So continuing on with regulations, I have something that I need to get to you with. I don't think we're gonna have time to attack this tonight.
Thank you.
But there was, I just think I handed it out to you tonight. There is a new state statute or public act that concerns group and family child care homes, and it's rather unusual because it's a statute that affects your zoning regulation and whatnot. But they made it in that section B on the first page that the chief executive officer has to swear that the town is compliant with this. I've never seen this happen before. It's kind of interesting because they've changed other statutes that impact zoning regulations and never had this thing in here. So, in a nutshell, your regulations are not compliant with this public act. So what,
Yeah, so I
so
think it,
Beth needs to submit something, and so we have to give them a specific time frame within which the municipality will bring its zoning ordinances into compliance. And I wasn't comfortable saying a date, because I don't know. I mean, we could do it just as a one-off and just do that section to bring it into compliance with that.
Does that require a public hearing to bring regulations into compliance?
It's a change to the regulations. There's nothing that exempts you from having a public hearing on that.
Well, we have to adopt them, right?
Yeah, I mean, the statute trumps any local regulation.
So it doesn't matter what people say, right? But they can come and have a say about it. If
Right.
there's a public, okay.
Right,
Yeah.
but we
So-
still need to change our regs and have our
So-
regs read the way it's supposed to read. I'm not saying you need to do this next month or the month after or anything like that. I just need a workable timeframe. So if
Yeah.
you say July 30th, 2024, that's what I'll put in.
so it says effective October 1st, 2023, this statute becomes effective, and that you have to only report by December 1st whether or not we're compliant, and if not compliant, say when we will be compliant.
Yeah.
So we just need to
Come up
pick a
with a
date.
date by which you'll be compliant, and I didn't wanna, shoehorn you into a date that wasn't practical, given that you're working on everything else. But the other thing that's out there is this town plan has to get updated, and you now only have less than a year and a half to do it. So, as
That's a
much
big
as you
problem.
have zoning regs that you're working on and all this other stuff, the town plan has an end date that it has to get done by. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news.
And just to be clear, the change is not well, actually, have you looked at it? How big of a change do we need to make?
It's basically saying, right now, we require a permit, and we're gonna say they're exempt. We're just gonna take this language and say they're exempt. That's all it is. It's not a biggie. but it does have to go to the Council of Governments because it's a change to your regulations. So it's not something that's feasible to do for December, so that's why, you know,
Sure.
given the holidays in December, I didn't wanna come up with a date on my own. You know, I figured if we gave a farther out date and we're done before
Yeah,
then,
that-
then it's okay.
That's what I would suggest, so it doesn't appear as though there's
Deadline.
a cap or a deadline for making the changes. Why not say December 1st, 2024, or December 31st, 2024, just to
Give
give
us
us
a
some
year to do
leeway?
it.
You wanna do December?
Everyone okay, December 31st, so give us
Sure.
the full calendar year of 2024 with the anticipation that we will
Get it done early.
get it done earlier and likely as part of the, it'd be nicer to not have to do a one-off just
Yeah, I
for
mean,
this one. to
Included
be-
in the regs that we're going through.
Yeah,
in
cause
the
the,
updates.
these legals are just crazy money, and so if we can incorporate whole bunches of stuff into one thing, that would be,
Okay. So December 31st, 2024, give us a year to implement it.
Sure.
and you'll just do a consensus on that date, and then I'll just let Beth know so that they can draft what she needs to draft and sign and
Sure.
that stuff. Thank you.
So that's items 1 and 2 for our work session. We're going to skip doing the big binder for the rest of the night because it is late. Andrew, any reports from our Regional Planning Commission of Scrog and their apparently advisory opinions for all of us?
Let me see if I brought the agenda with me. I thought I did. If not, I will pass. There was a meeting last month that I was present for. And unless I can uncover that in the next 10 seconds, I'm going to
We'll hear
put
your-
it off till next month.
We'll hear your report next time.
Yep.
Thank you. Report of our housing committee, Kathy.
Yeah, I mean, I can report that our housing committee, we really are focused now on actually creating the housing. We talked about strategies and how to do that, but at this point, we are looking at actually how to add to our units of affordable housing. We made some recommendations to Coop. We put some properties out for consideration, town-owned properties, for changing the use, so we did advocate for, potential homeownership opportunities, affordable home ownership opportunities. You know, from the training, that we attended on the affordable housing for housing policies, there were some good ideas that emerged from there, the potential of, either forming a, town housing authority or even a development agency that could help facilitate the development of housing, because we just need the capacity in town to actually do this. And with that, you know, I've been talking to the State Department of Housing, who is going to be providing, opportunities for technical assistance around planning. And so they did say that Woodbridge is on the short list, because we need help, you know, as we're thinking about doing housing, how we need professional planning to do this. And I know that it's always been on the books to get a planner, but this at least gives us some planning capacity. We wanna do some text changes for zoning, to encourage housing. If we're thinking about doing maybe some overlay areas for housing, we need to be able to do this, by a professional. So those are the things we're working on in housing.
I think Kathy, Scrog provides such services also for free.
Not too much. I always ask Scrog for stuff. Their bandwidth is tight.
So I know there is a new person on board, who's
Yeah, no, I
as
work with-
regional planner.
Yeah, no, I work with, Ben Lovejoy, and he did bring somebody on, and, their bandwidth isn't that great. I do ask for technical assistance a lot, and they're in fact the ones that brought in the Department of Housing to talk about technical assistance that they're able to provide, because they're actually providing, they're gonna bring in a planner that's gonna help towns that are trying to implement their affordable housing policy.
Kathy, not to ask a dumb question, but what does the planning cover? Is it what the house should look like, how many houses you should have in your town, where they go?
It's
Size
not
of
defined,
lots?
it's really what our needs are. I mean, I have, some thoughts, you know, particularly around like, we wanna do zoning amendments, cause we had talked about making zoning amendments in a Dev 1 to allow, mixed use, type of housing, you have commercial on the bottom and housing on top. You know how to do that, you do that in conjunction with the opportunity housing, or, you know, what is the best way of doing it to encourage the housing? There's some changes that need to be made, even with the inclusionary zoning that we did, or this board did during the Open Communities Alliance application. You know, you have like 20%, affordability. Sometimes that doesn't always pencil out, and it doesn't really produce many affordable housing developments. You might be better off changing that to 12%, just to make these type of developments financially feasible. So there's just like these different changes, and even like, you know, some areas where it's not public water, public sewer, but you may have water, you may be able to do a, you know, alternative type of septic system with higher density. You know, right now our regs don't allow it. Maybe you could do an overlay zoning district where the zoning just kind of changes for a defined area, so you're not like changing everything. So it's those kind of planning expertise that we could use help on.
Thank you, Kathy. Any other questions? Chris, any more reports as the zoning enforcement officer?
I did, under correspondence, have
I
an
was
email
just
that
about
I
to get-
distributed it to you.
Yeah.
This was for 110 Bradley Road. This is where the tennis center is, and I included the two separate permits that were issued for the air bubble that goes over it, and now they want to change it from a air bubble to a permanent dome or structure over it. And I just wanted to confirm with you, because that was, again, a site plan that was issued by you, that because that coverage was allowed, did it really matter whether it was an air bubble or a permanent structure? The use isn't gonna change, the coverage, in a sense, isn't gonna change.
I wouldn't think it would matter.
Doesn't matter
So
at all.
I just wanted to confirm with you before she submits to the building official to do that work. So,
No, it's,
okay.
it is
that's-
a structure over a
Yeah.
sporting facility. I don't care that it is a bubble or a metal roof.
Given our rainy seasons, they may have better use in the summer than.
Anything else? Hearing none. Motion to adjourn.
You're gonna skip minutes until next
Oh,
month.
sorry, I missed it. Minutes. Yeah, we're already here. It's the minutes of our October 2nd regular meeting. I have moved to approve. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Any discussion, edits? I found one typo, Chris.
That's okay. I put them in there just to have my fun.
Any further discussion of the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Minutes are approved. And I'll just-
Can I just ask a question on the plan of conservation development? Are we putting out an RFP for that?
That's what you have to sit down and discuss. So
Okay.
it's late tonight, but
We
I'll
put it on our
we
agenda
need to
for
have
next
I'll
it
week.
put it on your
Next
agenda
agenda.
for December.
Thank you.
The past, that's what you did. You said, you know, you had people from your commission interview. You know, you put out an RFQ or RFP, whatever they are. And
request
some
for
of you were in on the interview, as well as I think Tony is the
What's the
finance
budget?
director and the first selectman. And then they narrowed it down, and then they picked somebody.
Is
So,
there a set
yeah,
budget?
Understanding our budget, is it also?
We put money in there, I think we put 10 to start with this year, and then, you know, whatever hopefully you'll have a proposal, and then we can put in for the rest of the budget.
Do we typically
Finance
do,
is aware that you need to have that done.
do we typically do a RFQ or RFP?
I don't, I'm not an attorney, I don't know. Whichever one they do. We have samples from what was done last time, and I can get that.
10 years ago, right? 11 years
Right,
ago.
2015.
It's whatever the town's standard procurement practices for these types of consulting
Yeah.
services. We'll just,
Right.
and this is a consultant to both us and the Board of Selectmen?
No, it's a consultant to you,
Just
but the
us.
last time, Ellen Scalatar was first selectman, and I know she's sat in on the, interviews and whatnot, so I don't know who our new select person will be, and they may or may not wish to sit down on that.
We'll know
Ask.
tomorrow.
So we have certain things that are kind of important to get done, like the regulations, this thing we just talked about. We tend to run out of time during our normal meetings. Is it valuable for us to have working sessions outside of this meeting? I know it's a burden on people's time, but maybe it's.
We've done them, it's happened in the past a few times, Saturdays and stuff.
Yeah, maybe it's.
Saturday.
Did we do Saturdays?
No.
Oh, you didn't do that.
I wasn't there.
I'm just
More than twice a week or something.
So, Chadi, it is a good, again, next time when we're talking about the timing, the sort of game plan, the things that we have on our docket for the upcoming year, December's a nice time to sort of
Yeah.
map that out a bit and.
I mean, at the moment, it doesn't, I think most of the clutter that's been on your radar is kind of disappearing. I don't know of any.
But every month we get new things showing up like people forget
Well,
to
that's because
file their
people forget to
Mylars.
file stuff.
I do recall that when we last changed the zoning regulations that we're now overhauling, which was only 5 or 6 years ago, we had several special meetings.
Yes.
Well, that was because it was a pretty phenomenal change.
Okay, like motion to adjourn.
Aye, or whatever. Okay.
So who made it?
Did we,
I moved.
did we
Okay.
vote on it?
Jeff second.
Jeff seconded, all in favor?
Jeff said
Aye. Any opposed, abstentions? Thank you all for tonight.
Can I ask what?